Namaste to the worldwide devotees of Lord Ayyappa in Shabarimala. In this presentation, we are going to briefly see how Shabarimala and Lord Ayyappa are associated with neurological centers of the brain. I am Dr. Vikramadityan, one of the international directors for the Global Union of Scientists for Peace, and also the founder and director of UFA World High Health Educare Center, Devanahalli in Bangalore. One of the major discoveries that the millennium has witnessed is that of by Professor Dr. Tony Nader. Human Physiology, Expression of Veda and Vedic Literature. This discovery brought to light that modern science and ancient Vedic science discover the fabrics of immortality in the human physiology. One of the major aspects of this discovery was the discovery of Devatas to be precisely located in the human brain, and this has been found to be structurally and functionally correlated. According to this discovery, we find Lord Ganapati to be associated with the brainstem. And also the innumerable cosmic bodies have precise correlation with nuclei in the brainstem. One of the aspects, Jyotish, of the Vedas precisely correlates with the basal ganglia. The Surya is represented in our human brain by thalamus, the Chandra by the hypothalamus, and so forth. One of the most important things to our discussion is the association of putamen to Shani or Saturn. Based on this world-transforming discovery of Vedas and Vedic literature to be correlated with the human physiology, another important discovery was blessed to us in the year 2000. That's the discovery of correlation between sacred pilgrim sites of the world and neurological centers in human nervous system. According to this discovery, the geographic features of India precisely correlates with the brain physiology. This discovery has its basis in Rig Veda, which clearly states that Rig Veda forms the basis of Bharat and its geography. Here we find in this graphic the South India being correlated with the brainstem and the nearby structures. The point of our discussion here today is on Lord Ayyappa. The common facts known about Lord Ayyappa in Shabarimala is that the Lord is ruling over the lower senses, and his Vahan or the vehicle is the tiger, and the pilgrims are needed to ascend the 18 steps to have the final darshan, which is the most sacred act in the long, arduous pilgrimage, and that women in the fertile age are not allowed in the sacred space. Now, this is a factor that has been discussed and debated as to what are the reasons for this restriction regarding women. To understand that, we'll be seeing this discovery of correlation between Sabarimala and nucleus gracilis and nucleus cuneatus. Generally, we know that the human physiology is very much responsive to environment. Here we are going to show you how the geography of India, particularly with relation to Sabarimala, matches to certain centers in the dorsal aspect of the lower brainstem. The anterior portion of the spinal cord and the brainstem carries important fibers from the cerebral cortex to the periphery of the body, and that we call it as the pyramidal tract or the descending motor neurons in the anterior part of the medulla and the spinal cord. And importantly, the feedback messages from the periphery of the body to the center of the brain is carried in tracts which are located mostly in the dorsal portion of the spinal cord, and they ascend to the brain, the junction of the spinal cord and the lower brainstem. This region is of focus for us today, and this important place that actually distinguishes the spinal cord and the medulla oblongata, we find two important centers where there is relaying of first order neurons, and this we call it as nucleus gracilis and nucleus cuneatus. There's also a clear picture here. We also observe that the fibers that ascends up leads to putamen or the striatum, which forms the first relay station in the upper brain. That's the basal ganglia. Now, if we look at the distribution of Shani temples, famous Shani temples, we find them to be in the posterior, or we can say the western aspect, which correlates with the posterior portion of the brain. Shani Shingnapur and Shabarimala almost in the western border of India. Of course, we have certain other temples dedicated to Shani, which are minor in comparison to these centers, and they correlate with certain fibers that are minimal but also which are transcending anteriorly. Lord Ayyappa's Vahan, the tiger, analogy has been found in the physiology of medulla. What we are seeing here is a cross-section of the brainstem at three levels. One is at the midbrain, second is at the pons, and the last at the level of medulla. Now, this correlation of the representation of a vehicle for the Lord Ayyappa is highly allegorical. Importantly, you can observe that always the lower centers are inhibited or ruled over by the higher centers. Lord Ayyappa, being the Lord of the lower brainstem, that's the medulla, rules over the basal or the lower centers in the spinal cord. And the cross section of the spinal cord at this level roughly brings out a picture of tiger. Of course, this is highly imaginative, and this can be understood Well, when we do a comparative cross-section analysis of different regions of the spinal cord or the brainstem, and nowhere we will find that this matches more closely with the animal related to Lord Ayyappa. Few slides that can focus your attention and get a rough idea of how the mythology has been highly encoded. Well, now we will discuss why traditionally women during her fertile ages are not allowed in the Shabarimala sacred space. It's a generally known fact that menstruation, which is associated with swinging of hormones, which includes estrogen, progesterone, and various other hormones, can lead to certain changes in the brain. A woman's menstrual cycle affects her brain in a number of ways, and for better or for worse, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone fluctuate during a woman's menstrual cycle. The hippocampus, hypothalamus, and the amygdala tend to be affected the most by the estrogen progesterone surges and drops. The surges of these hormones can influence a woman's mood, self esteem, and how she connects to others, and that includes one's environment. So, the cognitive function is definitely affected by the menstrual phases. Another important observation is the influence of caudate and putamen, or how the caudate and putamen could be influenced by the swing or the surges in the female hormones. Now, it's important to observe that putamen has been related with Shani Graha by the discovery of Professor Dr. Tony Nader. So, when we discovered that the putamen, which is a basal ganglia structure, which correlates with Shani Graha or Saturn, and those geographic areas which superimpose over the geography of Bharat, corresponding to the putamen area. So those areas could literally have more of the vibrations or effects of Saturn, and hence women with the surges and drops of estrogens and progesterones during her fertile period, if she visits these cosmic places which has more of connection with the Saturn vibrations, there could be certain unholistic, undesirable changes in the physiology of the women or of the cosmic physiology itself. So, this was the reason that could have driven the ancient civilization for certain restrictions to visit the Shabarimala sacred space. There are innumerable different references which you can get over in the modern literature that says about the influence of sex hormones on putamen. So these researchers can help us understand that the ancient practices were rooted in deep science that brings the best of the environment and the individual for the welfare of one and all. Thank you for watching this wonderful knowledge that has been brought about by the advancement of modern science and its correlation with ancient Vedic sciences. For more detailed information, you could visit www.ufaworld.org.